Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a concept you've probably heard thrown around a whole lot lately: gaslighting. But look, as we'll see, it is so much more than just a trendy internet buzzword. It is, quite literally, a systematic assault on human perception and reality itself.
To really understand where we are, we kind of have to look at where this all started. The term actually originates from a 1938 play called Gaslight. The whole plot centers on a husband who intentionally manipulates his wife into doubting her own sanity. And he does it simply by denying observable reality, like the physical dimming of the gas lights in their home. And what began as theatrical fiction back in the 1930s, well, it's evolved into a widely recognized, heavily researched pattern of abuse that spans intimate relationships, corporate workplaces, and, yes, even governments.
I know this is a heavy topic, but we've got a structured path to safely guide you through all this disorientation. We'll start with the assault on reality, crack open the manipulator's playbook, examine the battlegrounds of abuse, look at systemic and political disorientation, measure the true human cost, and finally, end with reclaiming your reality.
Section 1. The Assault on Reality. Gaslighting isn't just simple deception, right? It's not a one-off lie. It follows a very consistent, almost rigid structure. First, deny what happened. Second, distort what is currently happening. And third, replace that reality entirely with a highly controlled narrative. So the crucial point is that the ultimate goal here isn't just to win a petty argument. The real goal is to destabilize the target until they become completely, utterly dependent on the manipulator for the truth itself. It's exactly like the old metaphor of the frog in boiling water. It starts slowly, with the target thinking, this feels wrong. But with enough denial and distortion from the other person, that thought subtly shifts to, well, maybe I'm wrong. And finally, it hits the absolute bottom. I can't trust myself. And the very second a victim can no longer trust their own mind, the manipulator has achieved absolute victory.
Section 2. The Manipulator's Playbook. These manipulators, they have an entire arsenal of tactics designed to rewrite your past and invalidate your emotions. Let's rapid fire through these because it's wild how many weapons they use. There's denial, the flat out, that never happened. Minimization, where they tell you, oh, you're just overreacting. Projection, where they literally accuse the victim of the exact behavior they themselves are doing. Then there's withholding, which is this agonizing refusal to engage or clarify anything at all. And finally, narrative control, where they actively, consciously rewrite past events to suit whatever they need in that exact moment.
But what happens when a manipulator is actually exposed or cornered?
Well, they deploy the ultimate defense strategy, and this brilliantly illustrates the mechanics of manipulation. It's an acronym: DARVO: deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. By entirely flipping the script, the manipulator evades all accountability. They leave the actual victim drowning in self-doubt and guilt, suddenly apologizing for even bringing the issue up in the first place. It's a total mind-bender.
Now, you might be wondering, what kind of mind operates this way? Chronic gaslighting often aligns with cluster B's psychological traits. This includes narcissistic profiles who are constantly seeking control and superiority, antisocial profiles who engage in remorseless manipulation, borderline profiles who experience vastly distorted perceptions under stress, and histrionic profiles who use intense emotional exaggeration. Now, it's absolutely crucial to understand that gaslighting isn't always some calculated, evil master plan. Sometimes it's actually a desperate, defensive survival behavior from a highly stressed mind. But, and this is a big but, the psychological damage done to the victim remains exactly the same, no matter the intent.
Section 3. Battlegrounds of Abuse. Let's move to and see how this builds across different environments, because trust me, the abuse mutates depending on where it happens. In a family context, a child's entire reality is defined by the parent. Tactics like double binds and emotional neglect result in adults who inherently doubt themselves and basically learn to tolerate manipulation. In intimate relationships, the manipulator often reframes their control as care, which leads to deep emotional confusion and a terrifying loss of autonomy. And then in the workplace, the goal there is silent reputation destruction. Your competence is constantly questioned, perfectly normal boundaries are labeled as too emotional, and the outcome is severe burnout, self-censorship, and quiet withdrawal. So we're scaling all the way from emotional dependency right up to the complete erosion of your professional identity.
Section 4. Systemic and political disorientation.
But it doesn't stop at individuals. Massive institutions can distort reality too. In the medical context, we see patients' very real, very physical symptoms routinely dismissed as just stress, emotion, or a vast overreaction. In racial and social contexts, entire lived experiences are denied or reframed by the majority as simply oversensitivity or a misinterpretation. This scales up to create profound structural doubt, where entire social or patient groups are manipulated into questioning the reality of their own lives and their own bodies.
And taking it to the absolute highest level, we see state-level psychological warfare. Modern political gaslighting operates by flooding our information channels with constant contradictions. It relies on repeating blatant falsehoods with absolute, unwavering certainty, deliberately creating mass confusion over truth itself. It's a highly calculated disorientation tactic. And the end result? A populace that believes everything and nothing at the exact same time. It is, quite simply, control through chaos.
Section 5. The true human cost.
We really need to slow down here, because the psychological exhaustion the victim endures is just profound. Prolonged gaslighting doesn't just make someone sad, it fundamentally breaks them down. It leads to chronic self-doubt, constant anxiety, and this intense hypervigilance, like you're always just waiting for the next reality shift to drop. It actually causes identity fragmentation. Make no mistake, the damage here goes way, way beyond mere emotional distress. This results in actual diagnosable trauma, very often complex PTSD.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is what is actually happening physically inside the brain under prolonged abuse. Neurologically, your rational thinking centers literally weaken, while your emotional threat systems completely take over and dominate the brain's real estate. The victim is biologically pushed into a state of severe psychological exhaustion, which tragically makes them even more dependent on the manipulator.
But hey, there is actually a really hopeful shift happening right now. Some legal systems are finally catching up to the science. They're beginning to officially recognize gaslighting under the legal umbrella of coercive control. This marks a massive, game-changing turning point in how we as a society view abuse. The law is starting to officially recognize that harm no longer requires physical evidence, like a bruise, to be incredibly real and legally actionable. Emotional abuse is tangible harm. Full stop.
Section 6. Reclaiming your reality. So how do we fix this? Healing from gaslighting isn't just emotional. It is a literal cognitive reconstruction. It requires actionable, concrete strategies. First, documentation. Write things down. Keep screenshots. Anchor your truth in undeniable facts. Next, disengagement. You simply have to stop playing their distorted game. Seek external validation from safe, trusted people to help rebuild your perspective. Set firm boundaries to reassert your own control. And finally, utilize specialized trauma therapies like EMDR, DBT, and CPT, which are specifically designed to help restore your emotional regulation, bring back your cognitive clarity, and most importantly, rebuild your self-trust.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to bring our core theme full circle here. Gaslighting isn't just lying. It is a full-on war for power over perception. As our source material lays out so perfectly, whoever controls reality controls the relationship, the narrative, and ultimately the outcome. The turning point for anyone trapped in this cycle is surprisingly simple, though obviously it is never easy. It's that exact moment you stop looking inward and asking yourself, wait, am I wrong? And instead, you look outward. That is the moment the manipulator's control breaks and your clarity begins. It all starts when you finally stop and ask yourself, why am I being made to doubt what I know?